I'm having one last pass, maybe it's the last pass, another pass again across this idea of consciousness and development over time, which might be thought of as evolution, although I would hesitate to think of it as Darwinian evolution. But I mean, I'm up against a brick wall with this consciousness thing, really. So I'm trying to redefine the question for myself, not so much in terms of consciousness, but just in terms of thinking. And I think there's no doubt, at least there's no doubt in my mind, that the progression of the human race in this case over time has seen, in some cases, revolutions, but certainly developments in thinking styles, and in what is possible to think about, in ways it's possible to think. As I say, I don't think that's necessarily anything to do with consciousness, but I think something to do with changes in the ability to think has undoubtedly happened. I suppose it relates to something I was talking about a while back, this idea of gateway concepts, which I guess everybody comes across at some point in their individual life. When you're just growing up, you come across an idea, and it's the sort of idea which once you've got it, it just opens up a whole world of ideas which are beyond it. I guess most of them happen when you're very small, something like learning to count or learning the alphabet. Most of us don't remember learning to count, I certainly don't, or learning to read. But once you've got it, it just opens up a whole raft of new stuff which wasn't there prior to that. And I can certainly imagine developments in civilizations and developments in human culture over time in which those kinds of things have emerged on the scene, gateway concepts operating at a cultural level that open up possibilities for thought that simply weren't there before. I'm thinking also about technologies and practices. One thing that I was thinking about recently, partly because of this film 2012 that's coming out, was about the wheel. I don't think it was the Mayans, I think it was the Incas anyway, who didn't have the wheel. And certainly if it wasn't them, there were certainly plenty of other societies around who didn't have wheels. And then presumably somebody went out and invented one, or somehow the log rolling turned into some related activity. And what that means, because without the wheel, or that moment of inventing the wheel, must have brought about a whole series of changes in what became possible to think. And not just about, oh, this will make it easy to get to work, now I've got these wheels, I can make a bicycle. Not just that kind of thinking, but all of the related activity to do that wheels brings with it. Before the invention of the wheel, it must have been pretty much impossible, for example, to think of the seasons as a cycle, because a cycle demands this idea of something rotating and turning around and coming back on itself. It would have been impossible to think of all the rotations that we have, really, all the rotating metaphors that populate our language. Of course I've gone blank now, I'm trying to think of any. But anything to do with the wheel was just not available to us, because as an object, as a piece of physical material, as a practice of wheel building and wheel using, prior to that arrival it would have been impossible. And of course, with communications technologies and language and all the rest of this stuff, it'd be the same thing, I guess. So I can certainly imagine that there would have been huge strides taken forwards, probably incrementally, but occasionally in a revolutionary sense. Actually, without the wheel, revolutions wouldn't have taken place. Something else would have happened. I can certainly imagine those kind of events not being great openings out of consciousness, because I still have the problem I had before with that word, but as I say, of a step forwards in what it was possible to think and what it was possible to think with.